Good evening and welcome to another edition of Live from Region 2. I'm your host, Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament for Region Number 2, and also Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. I hope that you're having a great evening as we are now on the 8th day of December and the Christmas season has begun to step in. I hope that are in that festive season. I know the challenges, the cost of living, and we'll discuss that in a bit. Um, but Christmas is that season where we get together as a family, as a country in unity, and with whatever little we have, still have Christmas. Once we have our family, we have each other. I think that is the most important thing. We have life, health, and strength. Those are the essential things. I would want to encourage you to share the life. We were out last week. We were very, very busy. And so we were in the fields. And so we could have had this program last week. But nevertheless, I'm hoping that the 1 hour or so tonight we can cover some of those topics that we would have wanted to cover or we would have liked to cover. I hope that some of that can come out tonight. And I'm also looking to have a new feature to do tonight. I'm looking to take some calls. So I will be running a live call in. Um, it's on trial, so you would understand that we have to set the volumes and we got to get it right. So it's in the experimental stage, but we'll really like to have some calls coming in. More and more persons have been uh, logging on to the program every Thursday. When I don't have the program, people call me and say what happened. They're looking for the program. They even ask which channel it's running on. So I have to tell them, it's not a channel. It's on Facebook, on my page, the APNU AFC page. You can check the other MPs page, also the PNCR pages, whether the central page or the regional pages in there. So good night to Miss Paula Dean. I see a number of persons coming in. I see a number of persons from in the diaspora. Special good night and season greetings to you folks in the diaspora, all the folks in Antigua, St. Vincent, the Guyanese posse. I'm seeing folks from Canada, of York, always in the house. Maryland. We got somebody from in the UK. I've been several times to the UK, United. I've been to Europe a number of times, and you would be surprised with the quality of life that you see people are in as against what Guyanese are enjoying here in Guyana. And with a wealth of resources and the fact that we have oil, you know, um, every Guyanese, I believe, expect to have that good life at some point. Would have expected by now that we would have been on the road to the good life. The APNU AFC, while we were in government, um, attempted to lay the groundwork. But these past 2 years, 2.5 years or so, government has taken office. Things, as people in the street say, the times have become rough. Things become rough in the country. And so It is our hope that improve in the next few years. Even under the PPP, the APNO AFC has been advocating for a better life for all Guyanese. We see Irfan Ali and the PPP going out there and they're preaching this one Guyana. And, for them, one Guyana is about a one PPP Guyana, a one Guyana park, or a one Guyana football. To the ordinary Guyanese, one Guyana means much more than that. It means that the resources, the allocation of resources in the country should be done in an equitable manner for all Guyanese. And that is the true meaning of one Guyana. And that is what the APNU AFC, that is what my party, the PNCR, within the APNU AFC coalition, that is what we want to see. So we don't want to see any bluff with some one Guyana football or some one Guyana show. We want to see the allocation of the country's resources, that it is done in a fair and equitable manner and in a transparent manner for all Guyanese, because transparency is something that has been lacking in this country since the PPP took office in 2020, and it has been lacking prior to 2015. And so that is what we want to see. I want to encourage you to share the live, share it to your friends, share it to your groups, share it on WhatsApp, share it on Twitter, Facebook. Just share it to your friends so that we can begin shortly. And as I said, tonight we want to have some call in also. We want to hear from you. I want to hear directly from you. When I go into the fields, a lot of people stop me. They want to show me their road. Just this afternoon, I was at the Anna Regina market and persons were complaining about the 8% increase and the cost of living. They were weighing it to say that, the 8% has already vanished. That bonus that they expect, they are happy to get some extra cash, but they're already seeing that it will not be enough based on their basic needs. And especially during Christmas, we like to get a little pepper pot. We like to get little curtains in our homes. We like to we put aside that time so that we can buy appliance, buy that new stove. I saw a lot of persons rushing the courts branches for the discount. And I looked at it and I was just amazed. Guyanese, I said to myself, things are really, really bad in the country. To see the sheer number of persons that flooded courts, it tells a story to me. It tells a story to me. I myself was at cash in to benefit from the discount. I'm not as fortunate as those ministers. I don't have a super salary. The ministers do, and maybe it is that reason why they pay the kind of attention that they should to the ordinary Guyanese. Maybe that is the reason why they think that an 8% in 2022 is a substantial increase. They have their super salaries, and so they don't have to go through this everyday struggle. They don't have to go through this rationing of items. And so, you know, um, we've said a lot about it. We've said a lot. We've said a lot in Parliament. We've been advocating to the to civil society groups. We've been pushing whenever we meet the ambassadors, and that is the role and function of the opposition. Good evening to Miss Colette Davison. I see more and more persons tuning in. Guys, I will try to have this program every week. But as you know, I'm the member of parliament for Region 2, and I'm also the party chairman, the PNCR chairman. And so I'm wearing a number of hats, and sometimes it is a little difficult to keep the schedule, but I will try my best. I have a number of topics tonight, some of current issues. Good night to you, Miss Dorrit Edinburgh. Good night. Good night to Asquith Mingo, Michaela Andrews Coates, uh, Marinus Toby, Paul, Junie Daniels. You know, these are courses that are always on this program. I trust that uh, it is a good program and you are able to gather whatever knowledge you can get from it. So as I said, tonight we will want to have some persons call in. We want to have some persons call in. I see some of the Jagabats on the program too. You know, they would have missed it. Good night, Miss Eula Ruben. Good night. Good night to you. I see persons from all 10 administrators. I see Linden in the house, Bartica, those folks overseas. Those folks overseas. I'm seeing a whole host of persons. Florida. Florida is in the house tonight. New York, New Jersey. I see someone from Texas also. I'm happy has been able to reach and to develop a viewership that is far and wide. And so I want to say thank you for tuning in. I will get to straight to the program. In the latter section, I will be opening up the phone line so that I can take some calls and maybe answer some of your questions, or you would get that opportunity to share your concern. So this is a new feature that we are adding to this program tonight. So operator, if you can please put the first slide on the screen so that we can get to this discussion. Yes. So folks, it's breaking news. Nomination day for government elections has been postponed. That is according to Vice, but I would say it was canceled altogether. And I say because a new date has not been set for nominations day. And you know, this comes at the last minute, and one would wonder why. I'm aware that GCOM would have had a meeting this afternoon where this decision was taken. But it has been weeks, if not longer, that we have been saying to GCOM that certain parts of this process that they're undertaking is illegal. It is in complete violation of the law, complete violation of the election rules. And I've explained that over and over. We went to GCOM a week ago, and I led that delegation, the APNU delegation, and we explained to GCOM a number of anomalies, a number of things that we're not happy with, a number of violations. I would have explained to them that in several NDCs, they are changing boundaries constantly. And that has to be illegal. It has to be illegal. I asked the question, my first question at that meeting was that who has the authority to define the boundary? Now, after a week and a half, and after we would have taken to the courts, only after we would have taken to the courts, as GCOM decided to meet and decided that they had to go over this process. So they are now deciding this, and the Gang of Four, Claudette Singh and the PVPs, they now want the Guyanese people to believe that, you know, this thing is now coming to light. They now understand that this thing is illegal. Claudette is a Justice Claudette Singh, retired, and she of all persons would have presided over elections matters. You would recall in 1997, the elections that it was vitiated by no other than Claudette Singh. So she has been at the helm of GCOM since I believe it is 2018, around 2018. And so she has 4 years at GCOM. She has experience in elections matters, rules, election laws. And even if she doesn't, let's say she didn't, GCOM has at its disposal legal aids that can advise them. They have legal advice. And even if they hadn't, they can go and request legal advice. The law permits them to do that. So it is clear that the intention here, or I should say, it is clear that GCOM is basically moving in the direction where whatever he says, that is what they go with. You will recall a week ago when they had the meeting, Sayas Gunraj said that the list is a done deal. How could he made such a pronouncement? He could have only made such a pronouncement if he knew that he had the support of the chair, because it is 3 commissioners for PPP and 3 commissioners for the coalition. So nowhere you can go and make a pronouncement that this is a done deal. As a commissioner, you cannot say that. You don't know whether GCOM will, the chair will call a meeting, an urgent meeting, and then and it will be further discussed, and that decision will be changed. So it is clear to me, and it should be clear to you as the viewers and persons who are following the politics, that the chair is obviously in collusion. There is some kind of collusion happening there, some kind of collusion, because I cannot see that every single decision that is, or every single issue that is raised by the opposition is turned down by the chairman of GCOM. So whether there is collusion, at least it appears as though there is collusion. So we raise matters with them. If you go back and look at the press conference that me and Mr. Norton did, I explained that there could be wrongful enforcement and there could be disenfranchisement because of the boundary changing. If someone moves into a new constituency, then they might not, or in the case of enfranchisement, they are not given the opportunity to register in that constituency. They have to go back to that constituency where their name is registered. And that in itself is a violation of the rules, because the rules are very clear. It says that you have to be ordinarily resident. And ordinarily resident means that you have to live there, you should be sleeping there. That is your main place where you sleep, where you eat, where you live. Ordinarily resident also does not mean dead. It does not mean dead voters. So that is something that GCOM obviously has to deal with. Then they knew if they go ahead, this court action will embarrass them. And it is only after the APNU AFC, in the name of Carol Joseph, filed that court action, then they became serious. Well, we will continue to fight them. We will continue to file whatever action, take whatever action has to be taken in the courts. We will get it done. We will get it done. Because we're not going to an election that gives the PPP an advantage to rig and that kind of thing. We are not prepared to do that. What we are prepared to do is to secure our strongholds, because we cannot allow the PPP to come in and take over our strongholds. So that is what is being considered by the party. You know, every day, whether we're participating or not. The party has not made that decision. We have not definitively said that we will participate, but we are considering that we cannot allow the PPP to take over our strongholds. So we will continue to fight against this list. I am happy that the action taken in the courts would have caused them to do a 360 when it comes to the local government elections. Now, to take some embarrassment out of their their faces, the PVP that is, and GCOM, Clement Rohi and others have been putting out there that they support some 4 claims and objections. Well, we will see, we will have to examine that. We'll have to examine whether that satisfy the requirements of the law or it will not. Because as far as I'm concerned, outside of the list, they were changing the boundaries constantly. You know this gerrymander thing that they're attempting to do. In Dartmouth here in Region 2, instead of 3 constituencies, they made it into 2. Now Dartmouth is deserving of 3 constituencies. Dartmouth has more than 1,000 persons living there. And right next door, you have from Dunkeld to Exmouth with about 10 homes. And that is a constituency. That is now a constituency. Because, you know what, for what reason? Because it is a PPP stronghold. And so they have reverted back to that. In 2018, we would have changed that. We would have changed that because we recognized that it didn't qualify. It didn't qualify. In fact, it was GCOM who did some and some investigation and did it. And so they are now forcing GCOM to revert to the 2016 arrangement. And the 2016 arrangement might very well be illegal because one who that was inherited, that was inherited from the PPP. And so we will have to take a closer look at that. I believe that the minister has the power to set boundaries. The minister can name an area as the NDC. The minister can determine how many for that NDC. But in terms of the constituencies within that NDC, we're saying that the law provides for the GCOM to do the consultation with all the parties, with the people on the ground, and come up with a proposal and approve the constituencies. That is the way how it's supposed to be done. As we know, this government does not like anything that is close to consultation. They do not like to consult. Their politics is one of domination and control. And so I'm happy today that action, they recognize that they can be embarrassed. And so they're now trying to cover their tracks. Operator, if we can move to the next slide. So if you could, yes, so this news, this is from Demar Reeves, rightfully says that it's canceled, but says Gunraj is saying that he doesn't want to comment. And after commenting that the list is final, he now says that he doesn't want to comment, they will have to look at it when they already know that it is illegal. And so here we are in terms of local government. If you can pull up the next slide, operator. Now, I want to get into this topic that is most discussed. The most discussed. This is the cost of living. And it is affecting persons of every ethnicity, every race, every religion. This is a national issue, and it is our expectation that the PPP government will give it that kind of priority. But what we see them doing is running around the place, giving a little grant here, and not addressing the real issue. Inflation is high, the cost is going up. And if you are going to distribute grants in the way they are distributing, then it will increase inflation and it will not serve the purpose that you set out to serve. And so the relief that people expect to get from the 25,000, from the 250, etc., they're not feeling it. The money quickly evaporates because prices go up, and the money evaporates, and then they're straight back to the same position where they were. And so it is very alarming that the Minister of Education, the Minister of Finance, well, technically he's not the Minister of Finance, he's the minister performing the duties within that ministry. The Minister of Finance is actually the president. That is actually the Minister of Finance, legally. But the person who does finance is Jack Dio. So we got three of them who are experienced and should know about inflation, should know about supply and demand, should know if you don't work on the agriculture sector, if you don't have a proper system, a proper program to improve food production and improve manufacturing, you will drive the cost for food items will go up. The cost generally will go up. And that is inflation. So they are contributing to it. But I want to tell you why Ashni Singh is the minister within the ministry and not the finance minister. And he's a senior minister. He would have served the administration as finance minister for many years. And he's a whole party hack. But because of the legitimate charges that were placed on him prior, or well, not prior, but after 2015, when he went away to some islands in the Philippines, I believe. I think because of those charges, he was not willing to come back here to be the finance minister without some protection. And so, your president has immunity. And the Constitution says if the president has not appointed a portfolio, then he, by default, will have it. So technically, he is the Minister of Finance. And so, with all this skullduggery, with all doggery that is happening, with all this skullduggery that is corruption, with all the under the table deals that are happening, Ashni Singh cannot be charged again because he is not the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance is the president, and the president is immune to prosecution while he's president. And so that is the trick that the PPP has been engaged in. And so when we get to the cost, I was saying that it affects everybody. And the government seem not to be listening. And so, operator, if you can pull up the slide, And these slides are courtesy of Brook News, who has been interviewing persons. And so we borrow some of that literature to get it out there to persons who may not have been focusing or reading Starbuck News. So operator, if you can pull up next slide. And I want to give you a sense of what people are saying about the cost of living. Now, if you can pull that full screen so that I can see what is there. So this is Miss Hazel Livan, and she's a 57-year-old, and she's saying the cost of living is very high because you got the children to send to school, you got the rent to pay, you have food to buy, and it's very high. Very money don't do because I have a sick son at home and I'm a single parent. Now, folks, how many of you can relate to that? How many of you have children? How many of you have rent to pay? How many of you have bills to pay? And that is what Ms. Hazel is saying. That is what she is saying. The money cannot do, and she is struggling. She has a sick son. Does the PPP care about that? Do they care about it? Pull up the next slide, operator. Now, pull up the next slide, please. So we're all faced with this high cost of living. Those I was discussing, that those with some persons at the market area, and the people were saying to me that the ministers, they don't believe that the ministers care. They have super salaries. They have super salaries. And one person was explaining to me that even when you go to Western Union and the other money transfer agencies, they have to ask you all sorts of questions. If you're affiliated with the politician, all sorts of private things about yourself before you can receive that $20,000 or $30,000. And that is like chicken feed money in Guyana. People are depending on their relatives and their friends overseas to help them, to assist them in whatever way they can. And so they still have to go through that kind of difficulty. If you can push to the next slide. Pull up the next slide, please. Yes, now this, I told you that, this cost of living thing affects everybody. And here is Miss Amrita Dojoy. And she's a businesswoman. And she's saying, even though I'm a businesswoman, I'm worried about the ordinary man who has to depend on the monthly wage because some items have gone up price. What they can probably do is to subsidize instead of going from things that they can't afford, go for things that are nutritious and affordable. So that is some advice from Miss Amrita, who's a businesswoman. She's basically saying that impacting her as much, but she recognizes that persons that are the ordinary man, the ordinary person in the street, the sweeper cleaner, the public servants, the handymen, the people who do those odd type of jobs, the ordinary Guyanese, even to the ones that are working in the offices, at the bank, they're feeling the squeeze, and it doesn't have race. Now she's offering, you can't blame her. She's offering some advice. Pull up the next operator. Could you pull up the next slide? Now this is Miss, some of these slides are very interesting. So I thought today that to dispel some of what the government has been doing, they have a very good propaganda machine and they put all sorts of things out there and they try to interview people and any little good word that they can get here. The ones that do not speak in line with their objective, they would just don't show those. So I thought that I could do this today. Miss Deborah Pena, and she is a herb vendor at the border market. And Here is what she said. I think the cost of living right now is expensive because every time the government raise public servants' salary, they raise a variety of food items like rice, sugar, flour, school items, etc. The president promised us before the elections that the cost of living. And so far, his promises has not come true. I think he needs to do less investment and care more about the lower class of people. Here again, so you had an Indo-Guyanese talking about the ordinary people. You now have an Afro-Guyanese talking about the ordinary people. You have the opposition talking about giving more to the ordinary people. It is only the government. It is only the PPP government that who believe that all is bright and beautiful. They said in the last budget, it's one for resilience and all sorts of colorful words. But where are we after 2 years, 2.5 years with this PPP government? The question. Whether you are a supporter of the PPP, would have supported them in the past, or whether you are an APNU AFC or whichever party, or even if you're just plain Guyanese, any party, but politics affects your life, your daily lives. And so you must ask yourself, where are we or where are you? How has your life improved? Have your lives been vastly improved under this PPP government? Compare what occurred under the APNU AFC and what is happening now. And take into consideration that the PPP has a wealth of resources at their disposal. They have much more money, billions, and we will come to that shortly. But ask yourself these questions. Pull up the other slide, operator. Folks, we want to have a call in a few minutes. We want to have a call in. This is Miss Donette Downer, and if you can put it full screen, and she says she's a concerned public servant. I'm very much concerned as a public servant. It's time the government look into the cost of living for public servants. Fishermen are getting cash grants and everybody else except public servants. For a few months, it has been the same cost of living because at the end of the month, your salary is the same. And for a fact, every day when you go to the market, the prices keep going up. 2 weeks ago, pumpkin was selling for $1,000 in border market for a slice. Now, how could one on a basic salary afford a slice of pumpkin $1,000? Even if you are just home, man and wife, with a child, with one child, how can the ordinary Guyanese afford that? And these are the bread and butter issues that the government don't seem to get, that they don't seem to understand, or they just don't care. They just don't care because their bread is well buttered. It is well buttered. Some of them getting $800,000 and more per month. And so they don't have to worry about $1,000 a slice for pumpkin, as Miss Donette Downer. They don't care about that. I hope that people are getting a clear picture of who PP political party really are, who they are. And they could do this, they have a very good PR. They put out everything out there, we're getting progress. Progress for whom? It's only a small clique that continues to get richer. By the time we get to 2025, 2030, the gap between the rich and the poor will be so vast. It doesn't matter what resources we get. It doesn't matter what job opportunities the oil might bring. The gap between the rich and the poor will increase. And so it is the poor man that will continue to struggle. Operator, if you can pull up the next slide. Just pull up the next slide. Now, here is a young Indo guy, Rajan Bahadur, 22. And he's saying, I'm seeing that everything constantly going up. And most you can do is to budget for it, since nothing seems like it is going down. Instead of about it. The only thing I saw going down recently is gasoline. Everything else going up, such as food and basic commodities. And so Rajan, age 23, Indo-Guyanese, is complaining. Is also complaining. So it is clear whether you support the PPP or PNC, APNU, AFC coalition. The cost of living affects all of us. And all these organizations are saying the identical thing. Please go to the next slide, please. It should be the final slide on this. Operator, if you can pull up the next slide. And finally, we have Brennan Chin. And, you know, I had this works at the bank. He works at Scotia Bank. And people think because you have on a suit and a tie, you're there, you've made it, you have a super salary. It's not so. These are struggling Guyanese as well. Bank employees, clerks, in all this, they're struggling to make ends meet. And so Brennan is saying that he says the past few months everything have been raising. Everything have been raising due to inflation. The banker, so he has a little knowledge about inflation, and becoming impossible for Guyanese to survive on basic wages because trying to survive off of a minimum wage that is currently set for both private and public. To do it on your own with both private and public sector, it is impossible to do it on your own with means of income. In a nutshell, Brennan has said it all there. Both private sector and public sector are suffering. And this is a bank employee. You would think that he so well. He's probably making over $100,000. But he too is complaining. So just imagine the public servants that have a take home of about $80,000. And there are many of them that take home less. If those that Jagdeo brag and boast about with the $40,000, imagine what they're saying. I think by now they would have recognized that $40,000 can't do anything for them. And so they have to get something else, according to Mr. Chin here, young Mr. Chin, that will assist to sustain them and their families. And so I thought tonight that I would dedicate a great part of this program to cost of living. You would know that we would have brought a motion to increase public service that was put down by the speaker and by the PPP. We would have been constantly advocating, the leader of the opposition and myself and everyone on our side would have been advocating livable wage, a livable wage for all Guyanese. That is our vision. That is where we as an opposition want to take this country. It is not about big highways and malls. That is all good. But at the end of the day, it is about bread and butter for most Guyanese. Now, what do you really think about this? While he sits in his mansion, and he's had that mansion for many, many years. Shortly after he became president, he began to build that mansion. In fact, he had more than one. He got many. He got in Florida. He got all over the world. So I'm wondering what does Jagdeo think about it? What does he think about the public servants increase amidst the outrage that we saw from the general? Operator, please pull up the slide. Pull up the next slide, please. Now, what Jagdeo thinks. In on the 5th of December is what Jagdeo had to say. Jagdeo defends 8% salary increase for public servants. Now, are you kidding me? How could you defend 8% salary increase? Oh yes, he got it. He got the 8%. Defend it, but it's 8% of his $2 to $3 million. 8% of his $2 to $3 million. So he's comfortable with that. He is comfortable with that. He doesn't care about the man that is just making $80,000 per month. And you know why? The public servants are perceived to be APNU AFC supporters. And so once you're APNU AFC supporters, that is good enough for you. The PPP would have given to public servants 3% and 5% in the past. Now that they have oil, they're giving 8%. We give 8%. We give 8% to public servants without oil money. Without oil money. In fact, we increased some sections of the public service, some sections close to 50%. Those that were making 39,000, we increased it. And so Jagdeo is comfortable with this. Operator, if you can pull up the next slide and see some details what he said. And this is the politics. Listen to Jagdeo here. Listen to Jagdeo here. He says many people believe they have this view that we have received a lot of funds from oil and gas companies. You know, many people believe that we receive a lot of money. We know that a lot of money have been received. These are monies that you didn't have before. These are monies that successive governments for. You have it now. This government has received over $100 billion just in the last quarter. Over $100 billion. Just a few years ago, our national budget was just over $1 billion. Only a few years ago. And now in a quarter, we have received over $100 billion. And so I don't know where he is going with this. He says the Minister of Finance pointed out that the sums that we have received, modest that will grow to fairly large sums in the future years. We will still run a huge fiscal deficit given the developmental needs and the other needs of the country for intervention. Now, look, fiscal debt are plunging us into more debt. They're borrowing. Look, since the PPP came to power, they're on a borrowing spree. And that is because we have oil money. They are on a borrowing spree. Go and check the record. For a tooth and nail in the parliament, but they have with a simple majority, they pass whatever they had to pass, and they keep humming. Look, they borrowed from every conceivable agency, international agency, from the World Bank, Caribbean Development Bank, you name it. They have borrowed billions and billions and billions of dollars. People of Guyana who ask you to borrow, How is it that we were managing our affairs before? But no, soon as we get oil, we can borrow, and then Jagdeo gets to come back here and lecture us to say, well, we still have a fiscal debt that you created. These hypocrites, you know, I recall back in before the 2020 election, they were parroting about the coalition had 90 billion over the 5 years. The first budget that they passed in 2020 had $100 billion in debt. That is the hypocrisy. These guys talk from two sides of their mouth. Typical. Listen, I might be considered a politician now, but I don't stand for these kind of nonsense. I don't stand for these kind of nonsense. You understand me? Jagdeo is an experienced politician, experienced at what he's doing, experienced at what he's saying, and that is why when he went to Hampshire, the lady had to correct him, and if you guys could recall, had to correct him when he started to talk nonsense, and then he in turn he told the lady, don't talk nonsense, because they don't facts. They don't like to hear the truth. You have billions of dollars at your disposal, apart from the ordinary revenues that you normally get, and you can't increase public servants' salary by a considerable sum. But you can go and you can pay other constituencies $250,000, and to say that that is their severance when they would have already received severance. You see no problem with that. You see no problem with sharing out grants to some select groups. And let me tell you what they do when they share these grants. They invite some of these NDC workers, if you're Afro-Guyanese, they invite you to sit amongst the crowd. If you're a temporary worker, they sit there so that they can show this one Guyana. See, people have got to wake up. Jagdeo and the PPP is bad news for this country. Bad news since they came into power. Whatever you knew about them before, trust me, they are 10 times worse. Now, he goes on to talk about, this is the usual parroting from Jack. He goes on to say, well, you know, we share grants, and grants go to everybody. You have to take that into consideration. Now, look, fisher folks and others can, when they're feeling the squeeze, and I'm not saying that they're not feeling, but they have an option to increase their salary, so to speak, raise the price for the fish. Public servants have to depend on increase from the government. And so I don't buy into this thing that other grants share and public servants benefit from it. Everybody benefit from it. But it doesn't mean that will dice. It obviously doesn't. When you read the comments of all those persons that I place on the screen, across the races, across religion, it affects every single body. So he talks about taxes, and they always with this thing, APNU institute 200 taxes, and they reduce those, and he consider, you know, he can raise his chest and be, that hasn't do anything for the people. Ask him if he can name the 200 tax. They name a few tax, which basically equates to a $3,000 or whatever it is. When it comes to Gaiwa, it's a 5%. It works out as $100 when it comes to GWI. These guys are the masters of deceiving people. While they deceive the nation, they got their friends and cronies left, right, and center, full in their pockets, while the ordinary Guyanese suffer. Operator, if you can go to the next slide. So, and this is another propaganda that they put out there. So in the Chronicle they put out no increase in electricity costs despite rising fuel price. What and I made this post the other day. This is the usual propaganda. They want Guyanese to believe that the government doing them a favor. Fuel price rising and you ain't got to pay no electricity, increased tariff. We in the opposition are saying that we shouldn't have to pay the tariff or the high price in the first place. It is a sin. It is a cardinal sin to be paying for fuel, high price for electricity in this country when you produce oil. When you produce oil, it is a sin. So I don't know where they're going with this thing, like they're doing us a favor. They're doing Guyanese a favor, not increasing your electricity. The opposition has long said, remove the tariff. We will remove the tariff from the lower bracket people. We will remove, you can have more disposable income in your pockets. That is what a caring government does. That is what you have to do as a caring government. Pull up the next slide, operator. And I think this slide here, now the double pay for Cricket Carnival, I didn't in the last program. But quickly, these are the gymnastics that they do. These are the gymnastics. They think that the people, that performers, musicians, actors, influence people. And so what they do, they line them up together under a shed and preach to them, sermonize and say, look, we're going to give you all double money, double the pay for this program, this carnival where you all perform at. We're going to give you all double. And that is breaking news for them. And then you go wrong, newsroom and others go wrong with, and DPI go wrong with the camera and get people out to say, how you feel about the double pay? Oh, I feel good. Get Afro Guyanese and others to say that on camera to influence other people. That is the kind of practice. This is Putin kind of politics. This is Russian kind of politics. A lot of them were trained in Russia. I'm told a lot of them even know the Russian constitution. So expected, this kind of tactic is expected by the PPP. You pay people double pay, well, so be it. I'm happy for them. Let them enjoy the double pay. You gotta have a big fanfare that you pay a man. It's like you ask a man to weed your yard, and then you come out and say, look, I'm gonna give you double pay. Now you gotta advertise to the whole community that I just give this man double pay. It is. But you know what? A lot of these artists are Afro-Guyanese. And so the pressure that is facing this government, the criticism faced with, they got to find something to counter that. And these are the ways that they're countering it. Irfan goes around, whether you want to shake his hand or not, whether you want to hug you or not, he jump on you. Jump on you. I've seen it with my own eyes. Grab people's children for a photo opportunity to deceive the public. To say, oh, one guy, and it is a nice guy. Irfan Ali, he's a very nice guy. What about who's getting all the contracts? A investigation showed where all the contracts are going to one ethnic group. And I further say it is not only within ethnic group, it is friends and cronies of the government. It's not really about ethnicity. It is about drawback, kickback. That is what it is about. That is what it is about. Operator, if you can pull up the next slide. So we as an opposition have been advocating, and I'm hoping that our message, Mr. Norton, has been promising more than just a livable income when the coalition retakes government. This is our plan. We want the entire country to thrive. We want to see equity. We want to see those that are at the bottom to the top. But people, some people are against that. At the top, they want to be at the top alone. Be the kings at the top, like the PPP. They don't want others to rise. Why ordinary Guyanese must rise and live comfortable? That is. Operator, you can pull up the next slide. And I'm just sharing what the coalition is about. Put it full screen, please. And what Mr. Norton, the leader of the opposition, has been saying. And he said, the working poor in Guyana will benefit from the removal of personal income tax. So, remove personal income tax from the working poor. You will see a hike in the minimum wage. You will, and the tax and the threshold. So, you got a threshold where the taxable and the non-taxable, we will increase that non-taxable so that you have more disposable income in your pockets. Salary top-ups. I've spoken about that before. We will give salary top-ups because there are certain that need top-up to bring them up to that level as the others. And so that forms part of our economic plan. Ordinary Guyanese, for the ordinary people. Pull up the next slide. Good night, Abdul Noor from Queenstown. Good night, sir. And that is what the leader of the opposition has been pressing for. Pull up the next slide, please. And so it is my hope that persons here can have a greater understanding of the policy direction that the opposition wants to go and the policy of this current government. I'm hoping that you guys are beginning to understand the difference between the PPP and the APNU AFC coalition. One stands in the corner of the poor and the ordinary people, and the other for themselves, family, friends, and favorites. And we daily. Now, I want to take some calls for this last 15 minutes while Bluetooth mode. So I will just get my audio right here. Just bear with me for a second. And operator, yes, the number is on the screen. And so if you're interested in raising an issue, you can do so by calling the number screen. So we'll have our first calling segment. So operator, and you can pull up back the slide. I will deal with some local issues. Now, I'm bringing this issue again. This was an accident in charity scheme. Folks, please remember that you can call the number there on your screen. And so if you're pressing any issue or anything that was discussed, then you can call in a minute or so, or in 30 seconds, you can express yourself and we can have a discussion on it, or any question that you might want to ask. I will be willing to engage you. So on screen there, this accident occurred about 2 to 3 weeks ago in the charity housing scheme area. And it is the grandson of the current PPP regional chairman who allegedly ran over or had an accident, this fatal accident. Poor, ordinary Guyanese from charity housing scheme. Now, I brought this up again because I visited only 2 days, visited the family, and I would have inquired from them if there's any update. And they said absolutely nothing whatsoever. The Minister of Local Government called Jill Dharamlal. They're saying to me that the minister called them, and you would know that the Minister Dharamlal is basically the boss for the councils. He would be the regional, boss, the regional chairman, would have to report to him. And so I don't know what the conversation was, but he called and nothing happened after. But you know what? They recognize that these people are poor. These people are poor people. They don't have anywhere to turn to. They probably don't have enough money to get a lawyer to represent them. And so you just walk all over them. Your grandson is allegedly involved in this accident. Instead of trying to bully them, what you should do is reach out to this family. First, offer to pay the funeral expense, and then try to work some kind of compensation.
Disconnected. Connected.
Work some kind of compensation. But they recognize that these people are poor and they don't have anyone, and so they just don't pay attention to them. They have all kinds of collusion with the police. The post-mortem, they weren't allowed to witness the post-mortem, and that is in violation of the standard operating procedures with regards to post-mortems, especially when it comes to crime or an accident. And so they violated the rights of and violated the laws, the rules. And so that is where we are. Nothing is coming out from. You would recall that a son of the regional chairman, PPP, just came into power, would have slapped the station sergeant at Charity. So I don't know which police would dare try to pursue this matter now that it is allegedly involving the grandson of the regional chairman. You know what? Somebody said while they were an elderly woman, she heard me discussing this issue and she said, listen, I was in Charity earlier that day and I saw this young man riding up and down in a very reckless manner in the scheme. And I said to him, down, you have to slow down. And you know what he allegedly said to her? He asked a question. He said, you know who is my father? And you know who is my grandmother? That is the attitude. That is the attitude. Once the PPP are in government, this is how they operate. This is how they operate. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. And I'll be highlighting, I will continue to press them, continue to highlight the wrongs happening in region number 2. Operator, if you can pull up the next slide. Folks, on your screen, the number on your screen, it is my number, my personal number, and you can call if you have any issue. I will try to open up these programs so that and we can interact. We can interact. I can hear from you. Interact. Any questions that you might have, we can interact. I don't believe that there is, I don't know if there is another program where you can call in on Facebook, but it's good to be a force.
Connected.
Go ahead and call. Now, the road on the screen, I would have brought it up before when it was in its early stage of construction, and this is Hoppy Street in Dartmouth. And the problem with it is that they did it in concrete rather than in the asphalt, which was there before. And if you notice, it is narrow. 2 vehicles cannot pass, and especially because it is way up, it is about a foot high from the corner. So there is no way that 2 vehicles can go into the corner. Added to that, the walkways that they didn't cater for it. But since I started to highlight this issue, they went back and they put these little entrances, these little walkways. But it makes no sense, because if you look at the steepness of it, now any big or an elderly person cannot walk up that slope. They cannot walk up that slope. Vehicles cannot go down that slope without hitting. Operator, if you can pull up, just go through the lights on this road. And this is in Dartmouth. No consultation with the people, and I don't blame the contractor here. I blame the government because it is them who had to give the bill of quantities. I sorry, I see somebody trying to call, uh, but maybe it has some kind of problem with the connection. I'm just trying to see the connection. Just bear with me. Bear with me 1 second. Bear with me, caller. I see somebody is calling in. Let me just check this. Oh, it's for audio. Okay.
Disconnected. Connected.
Oh boy, it seems as though we are having a problem with the Bluetooth. Maybe I can take this call online. Good evening, caller. You're online. Are you calling in on the program?
I can't like this issue.
Yes, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah, this marijuana thing is legalizing, you know?
The marijuana. Now the caller wants to know. I'm not sure if you have to check the feedback, but the caller wants to know if the marijuana is legalized. No, technically it is not legalized. There is.
Yeah, because you know I find when I'm in the bus now, these young men coming in with the marijuana bus and like they don't give you know they don't care nothing. You have to deal with that issue of emergency because you know it's also going and they're coming in with it, they don't out it and passenger travel in the bus and
now
you have to deal with that.
Now what is supposed to happen? First of all, that's it. You're tuned into the program so you can hear on the program. I can cut you off. Okay. All right. So the caller is complaining basically that young men are now smoking marijuana in public transportation, and so he's asking if the marijuana has been legalized. So the straight answer to that is no. It's illegal, but there is an non. What do you call it? You don't go to jail for a limited amount, like a joint. I think it is up to 30 grams. There is no jail time for it, but there is community service. But smoking public is still illegal. It doesn't matter what you smoke. It doesn't matter what you smoke. Smoking is illegal in public transportation, at public places. It is illegal. So anybody you see smoking next to you, right to tell them out that cigarette, out that weed, or go in an area where you can away from persons, so you can be charged and fined for smoking in the public. So smoking on buses and other forms of transportation is totally prohibited. But you see, caller, when you have a government that is lawless, then it trickles down. The lawlessness down. It trickles down through the government agencies and finally to the people. When you have a government and a leader, a president who tries to corrupt the police force, who tries to promote people that he wants, who tries to dictate what happens, then others within the force will lose respect, and then they will not do their job as they should. When you have a government that ignores the plight of public servants, and the police are also in that category, when they feel dissatisfied with their pay, then that can bring as well. And so there are a number of factors that contribute to that, what you described, illegal, and you should ask that person not to do it. And if they persist, then you can report, have the authorities deal with it. It's still illegal. Smoking weed, a joint, is still illegal. Operator, if you can pull up, we have about 4 minutes. I don't want to pass, get into Shurwayne. Pull up the other slide, the road, please. I have a number of roads that I want a specific road. I was just having some clip here of this road. Yes, pull up the others. Now, these are some roads in Charity. On my visit to Charity day before yesterday, I saw these roads. Pull up the next road. All these are roads in Charity. Charity, the access to Amazon area, close, very close to the bright, the popular area. But look at this road. Now, this is in the NDC. The Charity NDC is from Charity Urasaro. Now, this is a road within the NDC, and you see how it's great, how it's good. Show the other angle, operator. This, and you would ask yourself why there are so many bad roads in Charity. Every single road on this is on the of the road corner going to Charity, and this is the first road, and this is condition, and every other road in Charity is bad, except one or two that they did recently, well, not recently, over the past 2 years. They did about 2 roads or so. And you would ask yourself, why is it that this road, I'm having a caller here, why is it that this road is good, so good? You know why? You see that pink house there? Operator, you can zoom into that pink house. You see that pink house and this is the only road. This is the only road in that street. Only road. You know why? The NDC chairman lives there. The PPP big boy for the NDC, he lives there. So he takes care of himself. He even got a gate as though it's a private road. But his house is the only house there. And so he had a whole entire road done. And look, it is concrete, but not like the one that they did in Dartmouth. They ensured that they fill the corners so that 2 vehicles can pass. They did everything perfect. And so this is the way the PPP operate. They're all for themselves. Roads in Charity, extremely bad.
Disconnected.
All the roads on that corner. All the roads on that same corner as that other. But the one that is well done is the family and friend and the PPP big boy. He got a road. Pull it up back, operator. He got a road for himself. It even fenced because he got some cows. This is the Somerset area, the beginning of Somerset, beginning of the Charity NDC. I don't know how Nigel Darmla can permit such a thing. When poor people struggling, the big boys get a whole road for himself, and it fence off from cows, and it got a gate. And his house is the only house on this street. This is ridiculous, but this is a typical example of the PPP. Folks, that brings us to the end of the program. It seems as though we have difficulties in terms of getting the speaker to play but be sure that will be fixed on the next program. I would have done some justice tonight. I hope that I would have educated you on some matters and brought some very pertinent issues to light. And so I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining, and hope that you're back here same time, same place at 6:30 on Thursday next week, same time, same channel, when we will have Live from Region 2 once again. So once again, I want to say good night to you. God bless and have a great night. I thank you.